Section 2.5, homework problem number 3. So in this section, we're going to learn to either use math drawing or a table to solve problems related to percentages. And this method is, especially the table method, well, actually both methods, the drawing math drawing and the table methods, they are very useful. And these methods will also be used in MATH1102. So let's look at my example. A meal at a restaurant costs $35. So when we do solve problems involving percentage, we need to make sure we look for two things. So of course, there is going to be something like a percentage. So for example, in this case, it's 40%. But 40%, and we need to know it's just like a fraction. And for example, 40% is literally 40 out of 100. So it is technically a fraction. We just didn't put it in the fractional form because it's commonly used and it's easier to use this symbol instead of the fraction symbol. So we talked about fractions before. The definition that whenever you have a fraction, it's always a portion of a whole. So there are two things involved. One of them is a portion. So whatever your percentage is, I guess I'm just going to put percentage. Again, think of it as a fraction. And this fraction comes from a portion out of a whole. So when you have a word problem, you're going to try to look for these two things. Whatever the number they give you, for example, here they give us $35. Is this the portion or is this the whole? And so let's read the question. If the tip is 30% of the cost. So again, just like fractions, I mean, percent is a fraction. It has a whole. So the whole is right after the word of. So this is the whole. The cost is the whole, so which tells us very clearly. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and label this because a meal costs. So this is the cost. This is the whole, $35. And what is the portion? If the cost is $35 is the whole, that means the tip. Again, what is a portion of the whole? The tip is a fraction or a portion of the whole, right? So if you look at this and something, the tip, maybe I should rewrite the sentence here so we can, in one line, so we can see better. So the tip is 40% of the cost. And now there's three things. One of them is the tip, the other is the cost, and the third one is the fraction, the percentage. So let's label that. Again, anything after of, this is the whole, the cost is the whole, and tip, which makes tip the portion. Again, if you read the sentence, the tip is, this is like a fraction. So the portion is a fraction of the whole. Okay, so once we get these three things figured out, the percentage is easy to determine. It always has a percentage symbol and the symbol. But what you need to determine is whether this number 35 represents the whole or the portion. Okay, so now how much is the tip? And remember, tip is the portion. So we're solving for the portion. Now solve the problem with the aid of a math drawing or a percent table or both. Okay, and because it says or, so which means you only have to do one of these. If you want to do both, that would be great, but you don't really have to. And pick the method you like. And so let's see, I did both solutions, and you can determine which one you like. So if I do a math drawing, and this is the math drawing here, so how did I get this? And first we're going to draw the whole. And so when I started, I actually draw a long paper strip, just like we did for fractions. That's the whole, which is the cost, the total cost of the meal, $35. I mean, technically, I'm just going to put $35 here. and 40% and of the cost, and that's what we are solving for. And so we are trying to figure out 40% of this, which is 40 out of 100. If you want to convert this to fractions, it's 2/5. So, I mean, you probably understand why I divide it into 5 equal parts. I mean, if you're familiar with the corresponding fractions of the percentages, and that might be a little bit helpful. So the whole, we need to divide the whole into 5 equal parts. So we do, like I already have it here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Some of them don't look about the same size, and but they should be. So use a ruler to help you. And I'm gonna get rid of this here because I have too many things here. So I'm just gonna use this graph drawing I already have. So again, from here to here, that should be the whole. Label it up there. So that's the whole, which is the cost, or $35. And how did I figure out 7 inside? So remember that 40% is 2/5. But I can explain if you give you another explanation if you didn't really know why. If you don't want to convert the percentage to fractions, so what are you going to do? Okay, so remember we have 2/5, right? So it's going to be 2 parts out of these 5 equal parts. Okay, so in order to figure out the number, the amount for these 2 parts, we need to know the amount for each part. And notice that we have 5 equal parts. So it's literally you divide $35 into 5 equal parts. So you do 35 divided by 5, that gives us $35 divided by 5 equal parts. That gives us $7 for each part. So I labeled each part as $7, $7, 7, and 7. Now, if we have 2 of them, that's going to be 7 times 2. That's $14. So that's how I got 14 as the answer. $14 is the answer. Now, if you don't want to convert 40% to 2/5, and then and you need to remember whole, there is also percentage corresponding to the whole, and the percentage is always 100%, because whole means one whole, means one. What's one? One is literally 100 out of 100. So that's why the whole, if you want to use a percentage to represent it, it's always going to be 100%. And so now when you have 100% for this, I'm just going to draw another one. So let's say this is the whole, it's 100%, which corresponds to $35. And you can maybe, if you want to put a dollar amount up there and the percentage down here. And we want a 40%, but 40 doesn't really go into 100, because compare 40% for the number 40 and 100%, 100, 40 doesn't really go into 100 evenly. And so you might want to think, okay, so maybe I can do found something that can go into both 40 and a number that can go into 40 and 100. I mean, there are many numbers that can go into 40 and 100. For example, 2 goes into 40 and 100, right? But you really don't want to divide this into 2%, 2%, 2%. That's gonna, you have to do 50 cuts, right? So that's way too many. And an easy number we can pick is 20. So we can, okay, 20 goes into 40, 20 also goes into 100. So in order to divide 100% into 20%, 20%, that means I have to divide it into 5 equal parts. So I can get 20% here, 20%, and 20%, and 20%. And if I take 2 of these, that's going to give me exactly the tip, 40%, which is the tip. So again, the rest of it will be very similar. So if you divide 35 into 5 parts, so you do 35 divided by 5, that gives you $7 for each part. And then you're going to have to do multiplication, 7 times 2, or addition, 7 plus 7. But it's better to do multiplication. And because if you have 3 parts, you do 3 times 7 instead of 7 plus 7 plus 7, because it will be easier. Okay, so that's how we use the drawing method to do this problem, to solve this problem, to figure out the tip. So if you spend $35, you're gonna have to pay $14 tip. Now let's look at the percent table method, or sometimes we just call it table method. Now, so this is how you set up the table. You always have two columns. One column you're gonna put it as your percentage column, and the other column is the number. I'm gonna just call it, in this case, it's just a dollar amount. It's not a percentage. I mean, which one goes first doesn't matter. If you want to put dollar amount here and the percentage here, it's fine. Okay, so in my case, so I'm gonna put those numbers here. For example, 35, it's a dollar amount, so it should go right here. So that's 35. And what's the corresponding percentage? And again, 35 is the whole. The whole is always going to be 100%. That's something we should remember. And again, why I explained it here, because whole means one. One is 100 out of 100. So that's why I write down 100% to match to 35. Now, next we have another percentage. So 40%, this number. So I already put this number down. I got the 100%. This is 100% is not something they gave us. We just have to know that, because again, I explained, and $35 is the whole. The whole is always 100%. And now let's use this 40%. That's another number they gave us. So I'm going to write down. Okay, so when you start, you probably just so this is what you have. 100% corresponds to $35. And now I need to figure out 40% corresponds to what number? Well, if you look at 100 and compare to 40, there's not an easy relationship. I mean, it's actually 40 is 2/5 of 100, but it's not very easy for us to see that. And so what we're going to do is, we're not going to try to figure out the amount for 40% directly. We're going to find something easier. For example, by the way, this step right here, you may have many different ways to do. So what I did here is I divide 100% by 5. So you're going to divide both the dollar amount and the percent amount by 5. Okay, so we're going to get 20% here, corresponds to $7. It's actually very similar to the drawing method. And next, we're going to try to figure out, okay, how do we get 40 from 20? Apparently, that's very easy to see. We can just multiply by 2. Let me move this down a little bit. So we are going to multiply. Let's use maybe this red color. So we're gonna take this 20% and times by 2. And whatever you do to the percentage, you should do the same thing to the dollar amount. So separate that. That will give us 40% for the percentage for the dollar amount. 7 times 2 is $14. And notice that because when I look at 100 and 40, I don't know 100 divided by one number is 40. What times one number is 40? So, but I can see 100 divided by 5 is 20, because how do I get 20? I just divide by 5, and then from 100 to 20. And then how do I get 40 from 20? I just need to multiply by 2. So you can do multiple steps here. And this method is really not unique. This is not the only way you can do. For example, you could do, I'm going to give you a different way. So 100% corresponds to $35. You can use an arrow point to that. Now I'm going to go ahead and find 10%. So for example, I can divide both the percentage and the this by 10. Well, I guess when we divide by 10, we will get 10% here, corresponds to 3.5. And then how do I get 40%? I just multiply by 4, because when we go 10 to 40, we'll have to not multiply by 4. I mean, this method is not as good as that one because it involves decimals. And so I will have 40%, sorry, out of space here, and 3.5 times 4 is also 14. So you will get the same answer. Okay, all right, so how do you get 40% from 100%? It's literally like a number game. So, right, how do you get 100 to 40? You may have multiple ways to do that.